never thought I would die, but that day everything changed. My heart stopped, and within minutes, I entered a world beyond this one. What I saw was terrifying but undeniable. Jesus had revealed to me the signs of the end times, and they were happening right now. The deception, the shaking, the awakening, the rise of the Antichrist. It was all there, just as the Bible had prophesied. Now, I have returned with an urgent message. 2025 will be a pivotal year, and the world must prepare. What I witnessed will shock you, but it will also remind you of an undeniable truth. The Bible has been right all along. If you believe in God and near-death experiences, subscribe to Heaven's Whisper today. Discover inspiring messages from God through powerful near-death stories that bring hope and understanding. Subscribe now and join us in spreading the light of faith. My name is Sally Hall. It happened on October 12, 2023. I was driving home after a long nursing shift at St. Mary's Hospital. I couldn't wait to see my husband and 2 kids. The last thing I remember was seeing headlights coming straight at me on a wet road. Then everything changed. Doctors told my family later that I was clinically dead for 7 minutes and 23 seconds. But where I went in those moments felt like forever. What Jesus showed me about a coming deception, how people will accept a mark without even realizing it, still shakes me deeply. Right after the crash, I felt myself floating above my body. I saw paramedics working hard to save me, but I didn't feel any pain or fear, only a deep, peaceful calm. I watched as they carefully lifted my broken body into the ambulance. One paramedic, a young man with kind eyes, whispered a prayer while working. I wanted to tell him it was okay, that I felt no pain, but I couldn't. Then everything around me filled with light. It wasn't like sunlight or any kind of light I'd seen before. It was pure, living light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere all at once. The scene with the paramedics disappeared, and I felt myself being pulled upward, surrounded by this amazing radiance. That's when I heard a voice call my name. "Sally," it said, and my soul trembled because I knew who it was. It was Jesus. At first, I couldn't see his face clearly because of the brightness, but I knew it was him. His presence was so full of love and authority that I couldn't help but cry. As my eyes adjusted, I could see him more clearly. His face was both familiar and beyond description. His eyes held so much love and wisdom that I felt fully known and understood. Every sin, every fear, every doubt I'd ever had was laid bare before him. But his love for me didn't change. "My child," he said, "I brought you here for a reason. What I will show you must be shared with others. Many are unaware, and the deception coming is greater than they imagine." I found myself speaking, though not with words. "Lord," I said, "I'm just a nurse. Who will listen to me?" He smiled gently but firmly. "I have always used humble people to confuse the wise. Don't worry about who will listen. Your job is to share what I show you. I'll handle the rest." God took me to a vision of the end of the world. The sky was on fire, black clouds swirled like angry wild beasts. The earth split open, swallowing everything in its path. The sea roared, huge waves engulfing entire cities. The wind howled through the ruined buildings, carrying the wails of lost souls. I stood in the midst of the destruction, feeling the heat of the fire, the shaking of the earth, the smell of ash filling the air. Everything around me collapsed, but God's voice still rang out, calm in the chaos. "Is this the end of the world? Or is it the beginning of something new?" God asked me, "Have you read the prophecies in the Bible? If you have, you will realize everything is true." The world is changing at an incredible pace, facing increasingly serious challenges. New threats emerge one after another, creating a sense of apocalyptic reality. Wildfires rage, affecting millions. Nearly 9 million residents of Los Angeles and Ventura are under a new red flag warning, signaling the risk of wildfires becoming uncontrolled. Meanwhile, in New Jersey, a wave of mysterious drones has left residents worried and questioning what is really going on. These images evoke a sense of unease, as if the world is sliding into an era of unprecedented turmoil. Every generation questions whether we are living in the end times. It is a thought that is often dismissed as hyperbole or unfounded fear. However, when looking at the big picture of today's world, there are many alarming signs. The year 2025 marks a turning point, with a series of natural disasters and strange phenomena occurring with greater frequency than ever before. More than just sensational news, these events reflect an undeniable reality. Something unusual is happening on a global scale. Many believe that they may be part of a larger story, one that has been warned about for thousands of years. Statistics show an alarming increase in natural disasters. According to a NOAA report, in 2025, the United States experienced 18 major natural disasters, each causing more than $1 billion in damage. The total damage was $175.2 billion, and 474 people died. Wildfires, floods, droughts, and earthquakes are not only becoming more intense, but they are also occurring in previously unaffected areas. Hurricanes are sweeping through with devastating force, causing severe flooding, destroying infrastructure, and leaving millions homeless. Areas once considered safe are no longer immune to disaster. Los Angeles is a prime example, as wildfires are no longer confined to deep forests, but have spread to densely populated areas, burning more than 12,000 structures. Wealthy areas such as Malibu and Pacific Palisades have suffered the same fate, with total damage estimated at $135 to $150 billion. Natural disasters are not just in the U.S., they are happening around the world with unprecedented severity. In Libya, catastrophic flooding in September 2023 killed more than 11,000 people in just one day. The water rose rapidly, sweeping away entire cities, destroying transportation systems, and leaving hundreds of thousands homeless. This is not an unusual or one-off phenomenon. It reflects the vulnerability of modern civilization to sudden changes in nature. Climate experts warn that climate change is the main cause of these disasters. However, even they are surprised by the speed at which extreme events are escalating. What was once predicted to happen in the coming decades is now a reality. These events can be viewed in many different ways. Some see them as the inevitable result of climate change, of humans exploiting natural resources without control. Others believe they are a sign of something bigger, something that was prophesied thousands of years ago. In the Bible, Matthew 24:7 mentions famines, earthquakes, and natural disasters in many places as signs of the end times. What is remarkable is that these descriptions emphasize not only the occurrence of disasters, but also the way they occur, like labor pains, at first mild and sparse, then increasingly intense and constant. This accurately reflects what the world is witnessing today. Natural disasters are no longer rare events, but have become a regular reality, each time more intense than the last. The question is, are we entering a new era where what was once only a prophecy is becoming a reality? If so, what will happen next? Can the world adapt and find a way to live with these changes, or are we just helpless witnesses to an inevitable series of events? The answer may not be clear, but one thing is certain: what is happening cannot be ignored. The world is changing, and regardless of the cause, we need to prepare for a tumultuous future ahead. Current disaster data shows a worrying trend. The gap between major disasters is narrowing, while the scale of destruction is increasing. These are not random events, but a clear trend that cannot be ignored. The question is whether these disasters are part of a larger prophetic story, or are they simply the result of the environmental collapse that humans have relied on for centuries? Humans have always looked to the sky for signs. In the past, a comet or an eclipse might have been seen as a divine omen. Today, science has helped us understand these phenomena better, but there are still things in the sky that no one can explain. Reports of unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, are on the rise, not just from conspiracy theorists, but from pilots, military officials, and NASA scientists. In early 2025, a commercial airliner over the Bahamas reported glowing spheres at an altitude of 45,000 feet, moving in a way that defied the laws of physics. These objects were not drones or balloons, but were accelerating and changing direction at unusual speeds. In the UK, London, Manchester, and Birmingham have become hotspots for UFO sightings. Many people have seen strange lights, triangular objects, and unexplained movements in the air. Many of the incidents have occurred near military bases, raising questions about what the government knows but does not disclose. In the US, Congress has held hearings on UAP, where officials have acknowledged that there is evidence that challenges current understandings of physics and technology. Some officials have even hinted at the possibility that these phenomena are of non-human origin. This is reminiscent of the prophecy in Luke 21:25 about signs in the sun, moon, and stars. In addition, the world of 2025 has witnessed an increase in global conflicts. Wars between nations, civil wars, and riots are no longer limited to a few hot spots, but are spreading, escalating, and becoming more difficult to control. Conflicts in Eastern Europe continue to drag on, shaking energy and food markets and fueling Europe's largest refugee crisis since World War II, with more than 14 million people displaced. In the Middle East, tensions between Israel and Iran have escalated with military attacks and cyber warfare, moving beyond threats to a full-blown confrontation with potentially global repercussions. In Africa, many countries continue to be mired in civil war and ethnic conflict, with Sudan devastated by a protracted war that has left millions destitute. Extremist groups like ISIS-K in Afghanistan and armed groups in West Africa are expanding, spreading fear and uncertainty. Even places once considered stable, like the United States, face growing political polarization and social unrest. The 2021 attack on the Capitol was a wake-up call, but in the years since, domestic extremism has continued to grow, fueled by misinformation and deep divisions. These events all echo the prophecy in Matthew 24:6. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Not just actual wars, but a sense of anxiety about the threat of war that pervades the world. Tensions are escalating, conflicts are becoming more intense, and instability is the norm. The rise of natural disasters, unexplained phenomena in the sky, and the outbreak of war and conflict all raise the question, are these simply the result of mismanagement of the planet? Or are they a sign of something that was forewarned? The world is changing in unprecedented ways, and what lies ahead could reshape the entire human experience. Geopolitical tensions are at an all-time high. The threat of war is no longer limited to military conflict, but has become a state of mind, a constant fear that affects the way people live and think. The world has never been more fragile as alliances are strained, diplomacy fails, and nuclear threats, once considered a relic of the Cold War, resurface. Is this a natural cycle of human history, or the fulfillment of an ancient warning of instability in the end times? Beyond war and conflict, another worrying sign is the accelerating moral decline. This is not simply a change in individual behavior, but a profound shift in cultural values that would have been unthinkable just a few decades ago. Violent crime is on the rise, especially in major cities. In 2025, violent crime in the United States increased by 30%, with murders reaching record highs in Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles. More worrying, however, is not the crimes themselves, but the normalization of violence in popular culture. What was once shocking is now entertainment, from brutal video games to violent movies and TV shows. Corruption is also widespread in both government and large corporations. Scandals involving bribery, fraud, and exploitation continue to be exposed, but the public has become increasingly numb to these revelations. Trust in institutions once seen as pillars of justice and fairness is rapidly eroding. But perhaps the clearest sign of moral decay is the cult of the self. Social media has amplified extreme individualism, where one's worth is measured by likes, followers, and carefully crafted personal images. The pursuit of wealth, fame, and personal satisfaction has become the norm, often overriding compassion, humility, and integrity. The Bible warns about this in 2 Timothy 3:1-5. Men will become lovers of themselves, greedy for money, boastful, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, godless, unloving, irreconcilable, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, without love of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. What is most frightening is how accurately this passage describes the current state of society. Egoism is spreading as personal happiness and satisfaction are placed above all else. The pursuit of money is becoming a defining feature of the times, accompanied by greed, inequality, and exploitation. Society is becoming increasingly individualistic as community relationships are disintegrating and compassion is scarce. The lack of self-control is becoming more evident as addictions, from substance abuse to internet addiction, rise and impulsive behavior is encouraged in a fast-paced digital world. What is happening is not just a social change, but a deeper sign of the changing times. A world where people are becoming more selfish, violence is normalized, corruption is rampant, and moral convictions are fading, all reflect a worrying reality. The world is approaching a point of no return. Faith is also in sharp decline around the world. In many places, church attendance is falling dramatically, while traditional religious values are being replaced by secular ideologies or spiritual relativism. According to a 2023 Gallup poll, only 20% of Americans consider religion to be important in their lives, down sharply from 70% in the 1950s. In Europe, church attendance has fallen below 10% in many countries. The decline in faith is not simply a loss of interest, but also an active rejection of long-held values and traditions. More worryingly, false teachings and distorted ideas are spreading. From New Age-style spiritual movements to political religious movements, many are turning to twisted versions of faith that are in direct opposition to biblical teachings. The biblical warning is clear. Moral decay and apostasy are key signs of the end times. But this is not just a matter of religious faith, it is also a collapse of the moral foundations that once held society together. The world is increasingly glorifying greed, pride, and individualism, while humility, compassion, and truth are being pushed to the margins. Society is increasingly divided, confused, and disoriented. The question is no longer whether moral decay is occurring. It is undeniable. The real question is, what is driving this deterioration, and where will it lead humanity? One of the most defining features of the modern world is the rise of false prophets and the proliferation of misinformation. In times of uncertainty, people naturally seek answers and guidance. But in the hyper-connected age, these answers increasingly come from unreliable sources. Modern cults and self-styled prophets are on the rise. These groups often claim to have special revelations about the end times or promise salvation through secret knowledge. Many of these figures attract large followings, exploiting people's fears and insecurities to profit, manipulate, and gain power. In the 1990s, David Koresh and his followers in Waco, Texas, believed they were living in the end times, leading to a tragic confrontation that left 76 people dead. More recently, movements like QAnon have combined conspiracy theories with religious language, convincing followers that they are on a divine mission to expose hidden truths. Even more worrying is the role of social media in spreading misinformation. Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok algorithms prioritize engagement over accuracy, allowing sensationalist and misleading content to reach more people than verifiable information. Videos predicting specific apocalypse dates or claiming that world events fulfill certain prophecies are flooding the web without any evidence. The digital age has created an ideal environment for deception. As Matthew 24:11 warns, many false prophets will arise and deceive many. But false prophets don't just exist in a religious context. Today, influencers, politicians, and public figures can act as modern-day prophets, offering simple answers to complex issues and building loyal followings. The biggest risk is that widespread misinformation creates fear and confusion, making people vulnerable to manipulation. In a world where truth is increasingly hard to discern, it is understandable that millions are being misled. Even within religious communities, distorted teachings are becoming commonplace. Some preachers focus solely on prosperity and success, ignoring the Bible's core messages of repentance, sacrifice, and humility. Others twist the Bible to suit political ideologies, turning religion into a tool of division rather than unity. This raises a big question. If the world continues its slide into deception, violence, and moral decay, what will happen next? These signs are more than just social trends. They reflect a profound shift, perhaps part of a preordained scenario. In an increasingly disoriented world, the question is no longer whether we are headed for the end, but where this path will lead humanity. We live in a time when the lines between truth and deception are increasingly blurred, making spiritual discernment more important than ever. Amid global upheaval, one remarkable event that fits biblical prophecy is the unprecedented spread of the gospel around the world. For centuries, missionaries faced geographic and cultural barriers that made it difficult to spread the message of Christ to some areas. Today, technology has removed many of those barriers, allowing the gospel to reach places once considered unreachable. Through social media, online ministries, and digital platforms, millions of people around the world are hearing God's word for the first time. Platforms like YouTube offer sermons, Bible studies, and Christian content in many languages, making it accessible to anyone with an internet connection. Ministries like the Savior Channel, the Bible Project, Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, and the YouVersion Bible app have helped make biblical resources available to millions of people, no matter where they are. According to a report from the Center for the Study of Global Christianity, by 2025, the number of Christians in Africa, Asia, and Latin America will surpass the combined number of believers in Europe and North America. This shift reflects the reach of the gospel, even in countries where Christianity is restricted or persecuted. Despite strict government controls on churches, the number of Christians in China is growing at an astonishing rate. Religious restrictions, from strict surveillance of worship to the closure of many unsanctioned churches, have failed to stop the faith from thriving. More and more Chinese are turning to Christianity as a source of hope and spiritual connection in a turbulent modern society. By some estimates, if this growth rate continues, China could become the country with the largest Christian population in the world by 2030, a feat once thought impossible under a government that tightly controls religious practice. Similarly, in Iran, considered one of the most religiously repressive regimes in the world, Christianity is not only surviving, but growing faster than anywhere else. Despite the dangers, converts to Christianity in Iran have remained steadfast in their faith, allowing the underground church movement to thrive despite a crackdown by the government. Believers must gather in secret, away from state surveillance, but even these strict barriers have not been able to stop the spread of the gospel. Stories of converts defying danger, of secret communities trying to maintain their faith, show that Christianity is not simply a religion, but a powerful spiritual movement that has survived all trials and persecution. The growth of Christianity in these tightly controlled countries is a clear demonstration that faith cannot be extinguished by political means or repression. On the contrary, the more it is opposed, the more it burns. The global spread of the gospel is closely linked to the prophecy in Matthew 24:14. This gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. It is important to note that the Bible does not say that the entire world will accept the gospel, but only that everyone will have the opportunity to hear it. In today's age, with the rapid development of technology, social media, and digital communication platforms, the message of salvation is reaching more people than ever before. Areas that were once isolated, countries that once banned Christianity, and communities that had never had access to the Bible are now being exposed to the gospel through digital media, online ministries, and missionary movements. This widespread spread is not just a religious trend, but a powerful sign that what was predicted thousands of years ago is gradually becoming a reality. While many still reject or ignore this message, the undeniable truth is that the gospel has been and is resounding throughout the world, preparing for a time for which the Bible foretold. The events unfolding in 2025 are reminiscent of the signs described in the Bible. Increasingly violent natural disasters, strange phenomena in the sky, escalating wars and tensions, moral decline, and the spread of the gospel to distant lands. When you put all these factors together, it is hard to deny that we are living in the signs of the times. But these signs are not meant to frighten people, but to awaken them, to remind them that life is bigger than what we see before our eyes, and that each of us is part of a story larger than ourselves. The Bible also emphasizes something important. No one knows the exact day or hour, not the angels, not Jesus, but only God. So we are not called to predict or panic, but to prepare. And preparation does not mean obsessing over timelines or worrying about disasters, but living with purpose. It means aligning our lives with God's teachings, focusing on faith, compassion, humility, and truth. The world may be more uncertain than ever, and the signs may be too obvious to ignore. But the lesson is not fear, but a reminder. Be attentive, be meaningful, and be prepared. The events taking place in the world are not just isolated phenomena, but seem to be connected to each other, painting a panoramic picture of the upheaval of the times. Natural disasters are increasing at an unprecedented rate. Mysterious phenomena in the sky challenge human understanding. Wars and geopolitical tensions are escalating uncontrollably, while social morality is deteriorating and faith is shaken. At the same time, the gospel is spreading to every corner of the world at an unprecedented speed. These signs, when viewed as a whole, coincide remarkably with the prophecies recorded thousands of years ago. Rather than being fearful or panicking, however, this is a time for each of us to look back and reassess our lives and where we are headed. The Bible reminds us that no one knows the exact day or hour of the end times, but we are called to prepare, not by worrying about things beyond our control, but by living with purpose, keeping our faith, cultivating compassion and humility. The instability of the world is not a call to despair, but an opportunity for people to become more aware of the value of truth, love, and loyalty to solid moral principles. In times when everything seems fragile and uncertain, it is important not to try to control the future, but to live meaningfully in the present. Maintain faith and be ready for whatever may come. The world may be entering a period of great change, but the important thing is not to be afraid, but to be alert. Observe, reflect, and live with a spirit of readiness. Because no matter what happens, the core values of faith, integrity, and compassion will always be the foundation for people to overcome all challenges. Lord, I asked, what should people do to prepare? Tell them to grow their relationship with me now, before the deception comes, Jesus said. They need to know my voice so well that they can tell when something is not from me. Tell them to read my word carefully. The answers are already there, but they need to know the truth to see the lies. Encourage them to build strong friendships with other believers. They will need each other in difficult times. Teach them to guide their children to love me more than they love comfort or convenience in the world. Most importantly, tell them not to be afraid. I have already overcome the world, and those who stay faithful to me will share in that victory. As Jesus finished speaking, I felt a strong pulling sensation. He looked at me with kindness. "It's time for you to return," he said. "Remember everything you have seen." Though I wanted to ask more, his loving smile reassured me. His words echoed in my mind. Share the message faithfully, and those who are ready will understand. "But Lord," I said, "there's so much more I want to ask." His smile was gentle and full of love. "What I have shown you is enough. Share it faithfully. Those who are ready to hear will listen." The next moment, I was back in my body, surrounded by hospital equipment and worried faces. The doctors were amazed by my recovery, but I was more amazed by what I had experienced. Read your Bible, pray for wisdom, and build strong friendships with other believers. Most importantly, grow so close to Jesus that you can recognize anything trying to pull you away from Him. The mark won't appear as something clearly evil. It will look like a solution to problems, a way to make life better. But no convenience is worth losing your connection with God. Jesus told me many people wouldn't believe this warning, and that's okay. My task isn't to convince everyone, it's to share what I was shown. Those who are searching for truth will understand. If you feel scared reading this, don't be. Jesus showed me that his care and provision for his faithful ones will always be enough. Spend time growing your relationship with him now, before it's too late. Trust his words, "I have overcome the world." The deception may be strong, but God is stronger. Stay close to him, and you will not be misled. This is my testimony. May God help you see and hear what the Spirit is saying in these times. If you believe in God and near-death experiences, subscribe to Heaven's Whisper today. Discover inspiring messages from God through powerful near-death stories that bring hope and understanding. Subscribe now and join us in spreading the light of faith